Quick disclaimer, our episodes touch on a lot of adult themes that we want to put out there. So it contains a lot of adult language, adult themes, like I said, which include child abuse, child endangerment, assault of many various forms, and the such that can be very difficult and triggering for a lot of people. So please listen or watch with discretion.
For those of you listening to the audio only, all of our videos will be linked in the description so that you guys can watch them. Before we get into part 2 of Gannon's story, we have a disclaimer as this is a very tough case, and we will not be showing any autopsy photos out of respect for Gannon and his family. We watched the toll that these photos took on the family during trial and after with podcasters and YouTubes trying to post them behind paywalls, and it's just not needed to be shown. You
Yeah,
can get the picture without seeing it. And we just really want Gannon's story to be heard without inflicting any more pain on this family.
absolutely. And just as a quick recap, if you who didn't listen or watch to last week's episode, please go back because we do a deep dive into all of the information that is Gannon Stauch's case. So, just a quick recap. Gannon went missing. Letitia came up with a lot of stories as to what actually happened to Gannon and all of the events leading up to her being arrested, finding him, and everything with Al. Like it's heartbreaking, and I highly suggest going to listen before we get into it because we're not really going to touch too much on those details.
We're just going to expand on them.
Yeah,
So, I think the most appropriate place for us to start would be the day we found Gannon's body, right?
absolutely.
So, Gannon was found on March 17th in Pensacola, Florida, and he was found underneath a bridge, but he wasn't quite in the water. He was up on an embankment and kind of submerged in the water. Not really. It was a little half and half.
The inspectors actually said that it was really rocky and there was like brush and like
Yes. And it's
bush and dirt everywhere.
also very humid in Florida.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of moisture anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also by sheer luck that the investigator or the bridge inspectors even found him.
Mm-hmm.
So bridge inspections happen every 2 years. And as they do this, they will go out to random points on the bridge and drop a measuring stick down. As they were dropping this measuring stick down, one of the guys said, "Hey, there's a suitcase over there. Once we come back this way, let's go down there and see what it is." It wasn't uncommon for them to find things like this either. Usually, it's really sad, but usually it would be full of puppies or kittens that somebody discarded, thinking they were
Yeah.
throwing them in the water. So they usually would grab these things just to check them out. So they went on with their inspection, they came back, and as they got closer, they realized it was a green suitcase. And they had to go down there, and as they went to move it, it was really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they were pretty positive it was probably puppies. Until they unzipped it, and the stench was awful.
Yeah.
And they saw a foot wearing a football sock.
Mm-hmm.
And that is when they stepped away, called their supervisor, called the police, and when they came, they opened up the suitcase and they found a body in a red and green patterned blanket
Yep.
with a pillow. And if you remember from part 1, those were the things we still had not found from the house, from his
Mm-hmm.
bedroom that we have a picture of him in. So they took Gannon to the coroner, and a police detective remembered a missing children's photo flyer. And this little boy had a gap in his front teeth, and she had a feeling it was Gannon. So she took it to her sergeant. They called Colorado, and immediately they started to narrow down that this was Gannon.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's incredible to find. She was so close to throwing him into a body of water that led to the ocean. She thought she threw him off this bridge and was done.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it was dark. She didn't know where she was,
And she's dumb.
and she's dumb.
They did actually state that the river that's underneath that bridge does flow into the Gulf of Mexico
Yeah.
as well.
And there's just so much luck that we are so thankful for
Yeah, especially
surrounding finding him.
yes, especially since we're in the middle of COVID, no one's working, and these bridge inspectors still went out there.
And they still, at this point, this is only March.
Yeah.
We're like a month later. They didn't know. We're like 2 months. Yeah, like 2 months later. They had
Yeah.
no idea. Like, they weren't even looking for Gannon in Florida. We were still searching in Colorado.
Yeah. The remains did end up being Gannon's, which is very heartbreaking. And they did the autopsy down in Santa Rosa on March 18th. I watched the entire, like, I was watching the people in the courtroom while they were showing the photos of the autopsy, and everyone was averting their eyes. No one was wanting to look up at the screen except Letitia.
Which,
Yeah,
the only time in this trial that she does not look at the table or at a lawyer is now.
yeah.
The
Sh
only time nobody else in there could look.
Yes, even the lawyers, all of the lawyers were looking away, and it is heartbreaking. But then you see her glaring up, staring hard.
Through her greasy ass hair.
Yes, her nappy headed grease.
Yes. And I remember, because we listened to every minute of this trial,
Yes.
I was driving to work. I almost ran a red light
Hmm.
because I glanced down and was shocked that they were showing it,
Yeah.
like, in the stream. And part of the reason we're not showing it, you can't unsee
Yeah,
what you saw that day.
absolutely. Just researching this and having to go back and rewatch all of it was hard. Like I
Oh,
messaged you guys and
it was so
it was
hard.
hard. But I'm going to go through everything that they found. So get ready.
Brace yourself.
Yep. First of all, they found stab wounds going up the left side of his chest, shoulder, and down his back. There was also defensive wounds on his hands, wrist, and arms. There was one large stab wound to the back left side of his head. All together, there was 18 sharp force entries. 18.
Do you know how much time and effort it takes to do 18 stabs? Because it's not just 18
Yeah.
downward motions. You
Yeah.
have to count the upswing.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast on another case, and it was 80 stabbings.
Mm,
I stood in my kitchen and did that motion. I got to 40 before my arm was tired, and I wasn't even doing anything.
yeah.
Like, it was just air motions. I wasn't holding anything. There wasn't a person.
Yeah.
That's a lot
It is
of
a lot.
anger.
And I know a lot of police say that after like one or two, it becomes a crime of passion.
I did not
So,
know that. I just
yeah.
learned something.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Let's there's more.
There's
There's
more.
more. So, down the right side back of his head was actually a wound from a blunt force trauma. So, hitting him with something. And the prosecutors speculated that it was a butt of a gun, and they actually like tried to show the shape, and it makes sense. His skull, the fracture in the skull was deep enough that there was exposed brain. The top of his head also had blunt force trauma from the exact same object, and altogether there was 4 blunt force injuries, all I'm so sorry, all pre-mortem. The left side of his face and jaw, there was a gunshot wound, which has not been brought up until now. It entered the lower left of his jaw, hit the second and third cervical vertebrae. That bullet was recovered in the back of his head, but it did not enter into the cranial vault. so actually into his skull. And that was only one gunshot. Experts believe that the stabbings happened first since he was defending himself. It's unclear uh, that the blunt force or if the blunt force or gunshot happened next due to both of them cause bleeding in the brain. The cause of death they ultimately said was the gunshot wound and blunt force trauma to the head. And the manner of death was ruled as a homicide.
That is a lot to take in.
It really
That
is.
is a lot of anger. That is a lot of force
Yeah.
for an 11-year-old boy.
And the fact that he was defending himself, and I can't imagine how scared he was in those moments for someone who he trusted, that he's known for more than half of his life, to do that to him. It's horrid.
Yeah, it's almost unbelievable. We knew something horrible had happened in that house. We had no idea this would be it.
Yeah.
We figured she pushed him and he hit his head and fell. We figured that was pretty much it. I
Mm-hmm.
never thought that there was going to be this much overkill. And
Absolutely.
why?
Yeah. They did also release a toxicology report, and he had a very high amount of acetaminophen, which is Tylenol, in his body, as well as hydrocodone, which, yes, can be prescribed to some children, but generally not because it messes with them so bad. And he was also on multiple other medications for his stomach, for his ADD, ADHD. And so generally you don't combine that. But
No.
he had so much hydrocodone in his system. It's ungodly how much he had in there.
So, to talk on that, if we go back in part one where we watched that video of Gannon getting into the truck
Hmm.
and then coming home, and we said that it seemed to all of us that he was walking very slow and very lethargic. As it came out in trial, it was beginning to be believed that she could have been drugging him because that
Hmm.
hydrocodone was Al's from about a year ago.
For a knee injury.
Yes. And I was diagnosed with ADHD in elementary school. I took a pill every single morning like Gannon did.
Yeah.
So, my parents giving me a pill to take at that age, I didn't question it. Now, did I know what my ADHD meds looked like? Yes. But if my stepmom told me that I needed to take this too, especially if I had burns on me from the night before and I was in pain and I was hurting,
Hmm.
I don't think at 11 years old I would know the difference between a Tylenol and a hydrocodone
Hmm.
because they're similar to an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
So whether Gannon knew he was being drugged or not, that is a question.
Hmm. Really quick, also, the coroner who did the autopsy even stated that hydrocodone only stays in your system for 12 hours, maybe. And, like, depending on, like, a regular dose of hydrocodone only stays in your system for that long. And that means she, like, even after your post mortem, it'll stay in your system. But it doesn't show up in your system, like, after you take it for an hour, which means she had probably just given it to him.
Before.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was definitely given to him pre-mortem.
Yes. It's just the coroner was a huge,
Very impactful,
it was
for
so
sure.
impactful for
Yeah.
this trial. And now that we have talked about Gannon
Hmm.
and how he was found and the logistics of what happened to him,
Hmm.
I
We
believe that
we finally start getting to go to trial,
we get to go to trial now.
kind of.
Yeah, kind of. So, obviously it's COVID.
Yay.
Yay! Which means the courts don't care anymore and everything's delayed, everything's stopped and halted. So Letitia took this time to go, "Oh, okay. I want a new lawyer.
Yep.
Mm. I don't like this lawyer. I want a different lawyer. They're not giving me all the things that I want. They're not giving me access. So I'm my own lawyer now. I'm going to represent myself.
Yep.
And I don't know what I'm doing. So I keep messing things up. And they won't let me go to the law library. And they won't give me all of my stuff, even though I'm my own lawyer.
Yeah.
And then when that doesn't work, she grabs herself a lawyer and goes, I'm insane.
We
And
already knew that.
oh, well, we knew she was crazy, but she ain't insane. And she enters the insanity plea.
Yep.
And we thought this shit was over
Yeah.
because we were like, shit, COVID is delaying this. She's changing lawyers. She's trying to make this happen and get dragged out. We did not think we were actually getting to a trial.
Yeah.
But then we do get to trial. But on her way to trial, do you think she just sat in jail being the picture perfect prisoner?
Oh, of course. Who wouldn't do that?
Letitia. So she gets roped into a prison drug ring
Yeah.
where she drops drugs off on a table that another inmate picks up and ends up overdosing on them.
This was also caught on video.
Yes, that's how we know she did this.
Yeah.
It's a great video. And then she got charged with plotting to escape
Yeah.
because she was telling other inmates about it.
Yes.
Unfortunately, though, the charges for attacking that deputy got dropped before her trial, so we don't get any fun with that.
Unfortunately.
So when does trial actually start?
Finally, trial starts on April 3rd of 2023. So 3 years after Gannon disappeared. The opening statement started on that day, and immediately we were so scared with what the defense was going to do. We didn't know exactly what they were going to try, especially with the insanity plea and everything else. But honestly, it didn't seem like they were trying anything. We thought early on that there was honestly going to be a mistrial because it was just, oh my gosh, crazy. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But the prosecution called so many witnesses. And
it was a huge list.
There was a huge list, and some of them didn't even make it on the stand.
Yeah. They didn't even call most of them.
Yeah, but they were on that list.
But how many witnesses did the defense have?
One. The defense had one witness.
That's it.
Yeah. And also, like, while the other witnesses were on the stand, the defense barely even asked follow-up questions. It was really weird. And they just didn't bring anything substantial when they would ask questions. They specifically were like going out of their way, calling people by the wrong names, and just like confusing the witnesses with their questions and timelines. And
if they even asked the witnesses a question at all.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they were like, no question is.
Yes, it was insane. So we really thought a mistrial was going to happen. But let's go back to that first day of trial, right after opening statements. Guess who the first witness was? Al Stauch, Gannon's dad.
We were shocked.
We really were.
Prosecution said, hey,
we're starting off strong. It was wild, and he meant business. We already went over some of the recorded calls that happened between him and Letitia in part 1. Go listen if you haven't. But this is where we heard all of them. And again, I cannot stress how much of a saint this man is, because these calls were agonizing. And I can't imagine how they were for him, since this was his own kid and having to hear all this.
And especially now after hearing the coroner report on Gannon's body, if you think back on all those calls, she was telling him the truth. She was telling him what happened in her own sick and twisted way.
Yeah.
All the injuries she gave were legit injuries Gannon ended up having.
Except for the gunshot.
Yeah, she never brings the gun up, except for, was it Quincy Brown or Gordo?
It was the Mexican guy in the gang.
Asked for the gun.
Yes.
And knew where the guns
were.
But that's the only time she brings it up.
It was crazy. During these calls is also when we found out the reason why Al got transferred out of Alaska, and that was because Letitia had
Allegedly.
allegedly, there was a member of Al's unit had allegedly assaulted her, SA'd her. And that assault was never actually proven to have happened. Like, there was an investigation, everything. At this time, she had also lied to Al about being pregnant with twins. So, another pregnancy lie. Her attempts to, like, constantly try to manipulate him had no end. None.
None.
Like, even before Gannon went missing, this was just a constant thing in their life. And I don't know how he put up with it. So, pretty early on in the trial, though, Judge Warner, who we
Listen,
love,
is it appropriate to send a judge a fruit basket after a trial? Because
we
we
almost
wanted to
did.
so bad. We didn't
Yes.
know if that would like cross the line of like bribing public servants or something,
I mean,
but the man deserves a nice dinner.
he does. He does. Judge Warner, if you're listening to this, we'll
We
take you
fans.
out.
We big
We
fans.
fans. So, he had to give her a little talking to during trial pretty early because she could not pretend to be a normal human for like 2 seconds. She was caught flipping people off and making faces at the family and jury. She kept putting her head down while while there was a camera in the courtroom. They recorded all of this. People who were watching the live stream or like in the courtroom, they were taking pictures of the recording and sending it to people in the courtroom, to the prosecution, and then they ended up showing the judge. And honestly, it's hilarious. We'll put some pictures of her doing this in, but throughout the entire trial, it just got so much worse the last week of it. So Judge Warner ended up moving her like front and center next to her attorney, and they were like laughing and chuckling together and like
It was
flirting.
so unprofessional.
It
Like
was
it
disgusting.
was disgusting, and I couldn't believe her lawyers were participating.
I know. Ugh. And also, like, you could tell when she showered.
Oh yeah, because she started to do the hairstyles.
Yes.
Remember, like we had space buns one
Uh-huh.
day, we had braids. Oh my gosh,
Like when
like
she got moved closer to her attorney, she was like, "Oh,
it was like after in the first week she didn't care, but after that she started to care about her appearance.
it was
It was weird.
it was so unprofessional." But of course, we have the video of the Judge Warner scolding her. Here it is. Please enjoy it as much as we did.
Um, Ms. Stauch, you have the right and obligation to be present for your trial. Being present permits you to see the evidence the prosecution is presenting against you. It permits you to communicate with your lawyers while that is going on and assist them in your defense. You also have the right for the jury not to see you in restraints that are commonly associated with being held in custody or confinement. That way, the jury does not see you as a prisoner or someone who is in custody and is not prejudiced against you because of that. These rights, however, are not without limitation. While you have the right to be present for your trial, you also have the responsibility to behave with the respect and decorum required for this formal proceeding. You also have the responsibility to behave in such a fashion as to make the use of additional restraints unnecessary. Sometimes, during trial, a defendant chooses to act out. The likelihood that that will happen, in my experience, seems to increase the longer the trial takes and the more serious the charges are. And I know that right now we're in week 4, or we finished 4 weeks, we're starting week 5. You aren't the first defendant to act out. Probably not going to be the last. I cannot imagine the pressure a defendant feels during any trial. It's not uncommon for a defendant to disagree with certain testimony or dislike a witness or a victim. Nevertheless, you cannot act disrespectfully in words or actions. First of all, never helps you out. You've already heard one juror submitted a question regarding his observation of your conduct. They don't miss anything. It also makes your attorney's job much harder. They need to focus on the evidence presented and how to counter that, rather than your conduct in the courtroom. I am also aware of the practical realities that exist in this case. I could hold you in contempt for your conduct in the courtroom. That would mean that I could impose a sentence of up to 6 months of jail for each incident of conduct which I find to be contemptuous. However, in a case where a defendant is facing decades or even life in prison if convicted, a 6-month contempt sentence does not seem to be much of a deterrent. But that does not leave me without a remedy. We have moved the tables around. You are now sitting in a chair that does not rock or swivel. You will be directly facing the bench, and you will be more in my line of sight. I want to caution you against certain actions, such as waving your hands around, trying to stretch your fingers out, and leaving one of them more prominent than the other. Those acts would be, in my opinion, disrespectful to the proceeding. It's disrespectful to the court and the legal process. I also view it as a form of witness intimidation and an attempt to influence presentation of evidence in this case. If that conduct occurs again, it would be a violation of the decorum I expect in this case. Everybody that's sitting in the gallery sees signs that have already warned them of the same kind of conduct. You can't do it either. I may then impose other remedies. I could simply have a bolt installed on the underside of the table and have your hands cuffed to that bolt. You wouldn't be able to use your hands. The jury wouldn't be able to see the handcuffs. It would be uncomfortable. I could have you removed from the courtroom and the trial would proceed without you. You would not be returned to the jail. Instead, you would be held in a holding cell in this building. You know how uncomfortable they are. You would then be transported back to the courtroom at every break to see if you had changed your mind and agreed to behave in a respectful manner a courtroom requires. And you would be brought over for the next day of trial, and we would start all over again. So, with that, is the prosecution prepared to proceed?
So, next up in trial, it came out that Letitia attempted to get a fake polygraph test. So, in these calls with Al, she kept saying over and over again, I'll take a polygraph, I'll take a polygraph. And if you're a true crime fan, polygraphs mean nothing. They're not even admissible in court.
Yeah.
Like, if you ever get asked to take a polygraph, don't do it. They can't hold it against you. People be weird to you about it, but it doesn't do anything, and just don't do it.
Yeah.
So, what is she? There are fake polygraph websites.
Yeah.
You don't think this should be a thing, but it is. I get it for like a joke, but not in like a non-criminal way. Okay, there's never a good reason for a fake polygraph, is there? There's not. Okay. No. So, first of all, if you're innocent, ma'am, why are we getting a fake polygraph?
Yeah.
So, we want to read to you the questions that she wrote on here.
Yeah.
And there are certain rules that you're not, there's rules and guidelines for these websites. You're not allowed to say certain things.
For your fake polygraph test?
Yes. So let me read you these questions and then we'll go over their rules.
Yeah.
So her first question was, okay, I'm going to read these questions and I want you to answer Letitia's answers. Okay.
I'm in.
Remember, Letitia wrote the whole thing. Okay. So number 1, do you intend to answer these questions regarding your stepson truthfully?
Yes.
Question 2. Is your birthday August 4th, 1983?
Yes.
Question 3. Did you participate in any way in causing harm to your stepson?
No.
Question 4. Did your stepson return with you to your home?
Yes.
Question 5. Did you participate in any way in causing the death of your stepson?
No.
Okay. Well, duh, those are the questions you would use if you're pretending to be innocent.
Yeah.
So she submitted these questions and never got an email,
Mm-hmm.
never got a response. So she calls the place up to ask about it. And the guy who checks into it sees that it's flagged and tells her that. She proceeds to play dumb. Well, what do you mean it's flagged? Well, we have guidelines on our questions, ma'am, and you cannot ask nefarious questions. But I didn't. I asked questions about infidelity.
Yep.
You can ask questions about infidelity. You can, but she didn't.
Do you think she thinks infidelity is equal to murder?
Oh my god, I wonder if she does. But remember,
She's
she's
a doctor.
so smart, though. She has a doctorate. So once they told her that she was not going to be getting her results back because they cannot do it for questions like that, obviously, she says, and I quote, "What do you do now? Just delete it and go on about life and keep the money?" Well, yeah, bitch, they do. What else are they going to do with this?
I know.
And then they're going to call the police because you used your real name.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the guy that responded to her in this, his exact words were, "Yes, we do indeed." Snaps, babe. Snaps.
We got to hear this call.
We did.
We didn't play it for you because it's really drawn out and takes forever. But it's probably one of the best things she did.
Yeah. I mean, there's some pretty good ones. We're coming up to one of my favorites. So, speaking of dumb shit Letitia does, she was calling into the evidence at the police station, trying to get her passport back. But when she would call, she was impersonating Harley,
Of course
her
it was.
daughter. Like, what is wrong with her, honestly? Like, we're not going to play the recording, but there is a recording of it if you want to go listen to it, because she tries to like make her voice a little bit higher to sound like Harley, and it's her. You can tell it's her, but she gave her name, and it was hilarious, honestly. Like, the lengths this woman's gonna go just is insane. So she claimed that she needed to get her Harley's passport for the Air Force Academy, but really we all know she was just wanting to dip and leave town. So, very smart. Continuing on with more Letitia bullshit and being not as smart as she claims, which she brings up a lot.
Yeah, like all the time
Yeah.
in her interviews and phone calls with Al, you know I have a doctorate. You know that I'm smart. I'm a really smart person.
She says that she has this doctorate, but she got it on an online school.
That no one can actually find.
Yeah. But I digress. Let's go over her dumb Google searches. Because, there's always dumb criminal Google searches.
It's your favorite thing.
I live for
Every
these.
case.
I live for these. So, shall we?
We shall.
All right. Find real military singles. Parenting should be 4 people, not 1. 4, as in the number 4. Overdoing all the work for my stepkids and their mom doesn't help. Mom advice from stepmom. If you aren't involved in your kid's life, you are shitty. I'm reading it as she typed it, you guys. I know. My husband's ex-wife does nothing for her lids. I think it's supposed to be kids, but she put lids. Wonder if my husband's ex-wife is sending me a card since I raise her kids. My ex-husband's wife is sending me a Valentine's card since I raise her kids. I think it was is my husband.
I don't know.
I think it was
She
it.
can't spell for 1.
Yeah.
And for 2.
And she did that twice.
Yeah. And she started putting dots in between all of her words at the end.
Oh, just like that text Al got from Gannon? Weird.
Yeah.
So, there's a couple more. Her spelling is awful. Why? No. One day, some people will wish they treated you differently. Why should my husband choose me over family? Find me a rich guy who wants me to take care of his kids. Find a guy who wants me to take care of his kids and get paid. Uh, Happy some parents don't care for their kids and buy them presents. Parents are those who put their kids before their nails. My son burned the carpet. How do I fix it? Will humidifier help if exposed to smoke? Smoke effects. Will humidifier help? Smoke from fire effects. Will humidifier help? Colorado law for kid staying at home. School is out. Is it okay for my kid to stay home alone? Son is sick, but I have to go to work. Son sick, can he stay home? Suede repair kit for sofa. El Paso County Sheriff's Office number. What is the process for a runaway child?
Wait, she Googled the number for the sheriff's office instead of just fucking calling 911.
Yeah. Okay, so when she originally called 911, they told her to call the non-emergency line because
Okay.
of it being a runaway. So I think that's what it was.
Yes,
But
I
they
do remember
gave
that
her
now,
the
but I
number
was
on the
like,
phone.
For
Yeah.
a moment, I was like, woman.
But the thing is, they gave her that non-emergency line number on the phone.
Okay, so then why
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. So, what is the process for a runaway child? Police steps for a runaway. Police steps for our missing child. Today's flights.
Oh.
Oklahoma City to Colorado Springs. Can Nintendo find my Switch? CarNet Volkswagen. Police are asking for our son's toothbrush, but said nothing is wrong.
Okay, so why does she use Google like a best friend?
That's her therapist.
Like, girl, Google's not going to answer your questions about getting you a Valentine's Day card?
Absolutely. You can
She's
just
wild.
see that she was really struggling.
Yeah.
Like with her marriage to Al, like obviously they weren't in a happy marriage and she wanted someone else. Clearly, but she also wanted to get paid for it.
It kind of shows a little bit of a spiral on her part and where
Absolutely.
her brain was.
Yeah.
Just
But honestly, the one that sticks out to me the most, can Nintendo find my Switch?
yes. That is very random in all of this.
Yeah.
But it's not with all the information we know about his Switch never being found.
Yeah. It's insane.
It is. It's so
Her
insane.
mind is
But
it just doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't
honestly.
make sense at all, but it does give us a very good insight as to what she was feeling that week and how things could have kind of built up to what they did.
Yeah, absolutely. So after they talked about all the Google searches, everything like that, Dakota Lowry, who is Letitia's brother, took the stand.
And he was out here
that
Friday and helped pack up the house
Mm-hmm.
and was out here that week that Gannon was missing. He's one of those family members.
Yes, absolutely. It was pretty rough, honestly. Like, we're gonna play you just the beginning of him being on the stand, and
it was pretty powerful.
Just him getting up there and the first words he says. Take a listen.
Just take it in.
Did you just fly in yesterday?
Yes, sir.
And what is your relationship with Letitia Stauch?
That's my sister.
Pretty tough for you being here right now?
Yes, sir.
Hang in there, all right?
Why, teacher?
Mr. Lowry, do you need a moment?
Take a break for a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to step back in that back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really hard to listen to, and it gave us much better insight as to what she really was putting her family through in the time where Gannon was missing and afterwards.
Absolutely, especially since they were defending her so much.
hardcore.
Yeah. And just the pain that in his voice from that is insane. Like at the time, it was very hard to listen to. I know I teared up, I cried a little
Oh
bit,
yeah.
but like listening to it now, I kind of chuckle a little bit. Like I'm not trying to put
Not
it.
to be insensitive, but it's just once the shock wears off,
Yeah,
it's just a very wild court moment.
absolutely. One that we were hoping for, and we got it.
Yes.
So, Dakota did go on to talk about how Letitia was refusing to let anyone touch a green suitcase that she had. Think about that. She also, like, when he offered to help, she said, like, oh, it's full of softball stuff. I'm fine. But it obviously was super heavy for her to, like, try to move on her own and was struggling with it constantly. He even said that his gut told him something that was wrong, like, something was wrong with that. But his head just could not believe that his sister was capable of anything like that. He even said he regrets to this day, every single day, like since Gannon was found in that green suitcase, that he should have done something. Like he blames himself so hard and it's awful.
But be honest, would you be able to stand there and look your sibling in the eyes and be able to actually ask them that? I know all of you guys sitting at home are like, yeah, I would press my family. But would you?
Honestly.
Would you really want to know the answer to that question
Yeah.
if your gut was screaming at you?
Like standing face to face with them, I couldn't. I know I couldn't.
I know we all want to say that we would,
Yeah.
but I probably would have walked away as well and just hoped it wasn't what I thought.
Yeah. And I just that's such a horrible situation and we really really feel for him.
We do. But if you're
During
in
the
that situation, like go ahead and start recording on your phone,
Mhm.
ask those questions, give us a call.
Always trust your gut.
Always trust your gut.
Always. But we really felt for him during that testimony and we to this day we still do as well.
Yeah. A lot of police and FBI agents were on the prosecution witness list for this trial.
Yeah.
They they were crucial
Mhm.
in all of this. The amount of GPS tracking and data that they had on Letitia, and they had secretly placed trackers on Tiguan, on the rental car
Mhm.
that Letitia's Aunt Brenda rented, because Brenda came into town with Dakota and she rented a Nissan Altima because remember Harley's car got taken at the shopping
Mhm.
center, so they had to get a way to get around. So they this is my favorite part of trial.
I know.
She's so over me talking about this. So, at this point in trial, they bring up a map of Colorado Springs. And they use this map to put three different color markers up. And these markers were the GPS tracker for the car, is or cars,
Mhm.
GPS trackers for her phone, and Life 360.
Mm.
For those of you who do not know what the Life 360 app, it is an app that you can add your friends and family to constantly be able to track them and know where they are. So, if you were to pull up Google Maps in a major city and you just typed in McDonald's,
Mhm.
all those dots that would pop up, that's going to be her just regular cell phone GPS. Okay? Now, if you were to search Starbucks in that same major city, all those dots that pop up, it's going to be more than McDonald's. That that's the GPS for the Tiguan and the Altima
Mhm.
for that week. But if you just type in fast food, your map is now lit up like a Christmas tree,
Mhm.
and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the power of Life 360. Fun fact about Life 360, your phone goes into airplane mode, it's still tracking your every movement.
Mhm.
So, Letitia would go to Douglas County and put her phone in airplane mode for the whole drive. Do you want to know what was still tracking her? Life 360.
Yep.
They had all of her movements, no matter what she did, until they took that phone away.
I remember when they put the map up during trial and her face when they did that.
it was beautiful. Like, she had no idea that
Yeah.
Life 360 was still tracking her in
Yeah.
airplane mode.
Yeah.
But also, get your family Life 360 because honestly,
It's very helpful.
it's gonna save some people.
Yeah.
As the police went through her GPS data, they started to get a way better idea. Way better. And that is why they went to Douglas County. And it's why they just kept going back up there and kept going back up there. And we couldn't figure it out why.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because she kept making constant trips to the same location up there. It was found that through those searches in Douglas County that there was a piece of particle board from the garage found up there, and it did have a little bit of blood on it. They believed that she could have potentially been putting that piece of wood and Gannon's body up there.
Mm-hmm.
It had snowed recently, so it would have kept him in a cold place and delayed decomposition for her and delayed the smell for her. And it was a way for her to get him out of the house, out of those vehicles that everybody was so keen on.
Yeah.
So we do believe that he was in the green suitcase up in Douglas County in the snow with his particle board, which is why the green suitcase had been missing the whole time.
Yeah.
And she would eventually move him from up in Douglas County down to a cargo van that her Aunt Brenda had rented to go and move all that stuff out of the house. And this cargo van did not have a tracker on it. And so they were not tracking her path down to Texas and Florida and up to South Carolina, which is why we initially thought that she had disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Because no one was tracking her anymore.
So there was actually, because I think they got it from a U-Haul, that most U-Hauls already have GPS on them, but like the police didn't know until they finally tracked that van down into New Hampshire and seized it for investigation.
Yes, because since they were not aware of that U-Haul van that she had, she managed to drive to Texas, drive to Florida, back up to Myrtle Beach, where it got returned, and then it was rented from there.
Mm-hmm.
But they were still able to run it and find forensic evidence and things on it.
Yeah. So.
And we will get more into the van and the travels when we get into Harley's testimony, because Harley was there for it.
Yeah. Which now brings us to Harley's testimony. We were highly anticipating her testimony as soon as we saw that she was on the witness list. I honestly was surprised she took the stand against her mom.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
But
we know how we here know how you felt about that and how I felt about it.
Yes. And we will get into that at the end.
Yeah. So she did walk into the courtroom dressed she looked gorgeous in a blue suit for Gannon, because it was his favorite color. She looked very nice. It was a very cute suit also. She was definitely struggling being up on that stand. You could just hear it in her voice, like the
it was so hard on her. You could see it and you could hear it. This was extremely hard for her to do.
Definitely. Like, her voice was like shaky and breathy, and you could just tell. It was hard. She was struggling. She was. The prosecution started out asking her about the last time that she saw her mom, and she said it was the day that she was arrested. Then they went straight into asking Harley about her biological father and if she remembers how he died. She proceeded to then tell the prosecution, that he died of an overdose. The prosecution asked her, "How did you find that out?" Harley replied she found out a week prior, just a week prior to her being on that stand, that she found that out. And it was because up until a week prior, she thought her dad was killed in a robbery. Prosecutors asked her who told her that he died in a robbery. She said her mom. And then they asked her how she found out how he really died, and she replied, the internet.
The internet.
The internet.
Because this case was getting so much national attention, that is how she found it out.
Yeah. Like, how horrible of a human do you have to be to lie to your young daughter about how her dad died?
It shows that Letitia manipulated Harley from such a young age.
Yeah, absolutely. Harley then goes on to talk about how her mom always wanted to be moving around, and if Letitia now ever got into a fight, she would drag Harley into it, asking her opinion or to take sides. It was awful, honestly. Sometimes she would pack up Harley during these fights and take her to another state.
Wasn't it like Kansas?
Yeah.
Colorado, one of the times they just drove to Kansas?
Yeah. Yeah. But after a few hours, they would just drive home because she would eventually work it out with Al. Just more and more manipulation. Harley also talked about the day before Gannon went missing. So that Sunday when they were supposed to go hiking. Sunday, Sunday, Harley was called into her job on her day off. She worked at Massage Envy, about 25 minutes from their house. She confirmed that Letitia, Gannon, and Lena went on a hike at Garden of the Gods. Letitia even sent her photos and told her Gannon was having some stomach issues, so they had to leave the hike. But then that night, around 9:30, Letitia texted Harley about Gannon lighting the candle, knocking it over, and starting a fire. She then said that she had to jump on Gannon with a blanket to put it out, and then, like, rushed to get her and the kids and the dogs all out of the house and, like, went into their car and drove around, apparently.
Because that makes sense.
Yeah. But the fire wasn't that bad.
But the house was full of smoke?
Yeah, the house was completely full of smoke, according to Letitia. And Harley says that, like, she claimed that Gannon never lit any candles.
It was unusual behavior for him.
Yeah, but Letitia swears that he lit this candle because of the stomach issues he was having, that he was smelly because of it and didn't want to be embarrassed. But he's never done this before.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It all honestly just seems super weird. So Harley finally got home from work a little before 11. Letitia and Lena, the little sister, were upstairs in the living room, immediately telling her about the fire. Letitia tells her that Gannon was outside running around and yelling how much he hated his life.
Which everybody has said throughout this trial, that's not like Gannon.
No.
This is not normal behavior for Gannon.
Yeah. Because he was, like, a very optimistic kid.
Yes, and fun-loving, and not what she is making him out to be.
Yes, she just keeps claiming he was acting super weird. So Letitia then suggested they go downstairs and tell Gannon goodnight, which Harley thought was once again super weird because she's never done that before. Gannon was already in bed. Harley said the basement was super cold because all the windows were open to air out all the smoke. And they said goodnight to him from the doorway. And she couldn't remember if he responded. But she said that she slept upstairs in her mom's bed that night because the basement's cold and smells, but her room was down in the basement. Her and Gannon both slept down in the basement.
The basement was too cold,
yeah,
for Harley to sleep in, but it was perfectly fine for Gannon to sleep in.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure I'm with you.
Yeah. So Harley, stays upstairs with her mom, and she recalls that the basement was super cold and it felt weird. Gut feelings. Yep. So then, on Monday, January 27th, when Gannon first went missing, Harley had to work at 8:30. She didn't get to see Letitia before she left for work, but around 10:30, Gannon texted her saying that Letitia left her phone at home, so call me if you need anything. Harley said it was super unusual for Letitia to leave her anywhere without her phone. It was like glued to her, which based off of all the messages and everything we've seen, I understand.
Yes.
Yeah. When Harley gets home from work at about 4:40 p.m., Letitia tells her Gannon is at a friend's house. Letitia tells Harley she also found out how to get fire stains out of carpets, and she needed her to take Lena to go get cleaning supplies from the dollar store. Yeah, that included extra strength deodorizer, trash bags, and baking soda. Then Gannon never came home. He never came home for dinner, which I don't know why she kept mentioning it was going to be sushi.
She mentioned that so many times.
Yeah,
He never came home for sushi, and we were going out for sushi.
we were all excited for sushi. But yeah, so he never came home. And then they finally decided to go start looking for Gannon. At first, Letitia and Harley and Lena went to go look at what the friend's house was. And Letitia made Lena go up to the door to see if he was there.
I'm sorry. If my kid's missing and hasn't come home, I'm not sending the 8-year-old up
Yeah.
to check to see if her brother's there and to get him to come home.
Yeah. Well, after that, they drove around the neighborhood and Letitia, like, they got home and went inside to call Al and then the police, and she was never back out looking for Gannon after that.
And even the people in the neighborhood said she never came back out to look for Gannon that night.
Yeah, never. She was absent through all of it. Letitia also told Harley over the course of the next few days to not open the door for anyone, including the police. Because Letitia is known to have like a backhand. When Harley would ask questions or get against her, she would tell her she was being disrespectful.
Anytime she questioned
Yeah.
anything, it was disrespect.
And Harley listened to her. Like, I get it.
You know, from hearing how she manipulated her at a young age to hearing how she would shut her down or even use abuse to get there, I
Absolutely.
understand why Harley would listen and do anything her mom says at this time.
Absolutely. So Letitia did tell her not to talk to the police, and if they showed up, to lie to them to get them to go away. Letitia was using Harley to give her a play-by-play from the house when she was off other places. Harley was essentially her pawn in this game, and it's awful. Harley told her what the police were doing, what they were taking pictures of, and what they were talking about. She, being Letitia, kept telling Harley over and over again that she's being set up. She didn't do anything. She's being set up. On the night of the 28th, Letitia asked Harley to meet her at a hotel where they were going to spend the night. Harley tried calling her mom multiple times on her way there, and once she was there, and she never answered. Harley waited a long time for her mom to get to that hotel, and when she does, she's in her Tiguan.
Now, this is the day after Gannon went missing.
Yes.
Remember how Al couldn't find that Tiguan at the elementary school?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But now she has the Tiguan that evening.
Mm-hmm. And she left the Tiguan there at the hotel and tells Harley they need to take Harley's car back to the house and stay at the house that night.
So I know that we talked about this in trial.
Yeah.
But we believed, as this was laying out in trial, that Gannon's body was in the Tiguan at the hotel.
Yes.
And that just confirms where Al came from that evening, thinking that if we found the Tiguan, we would find Gannon.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
yeah,
Al trusted that gut.
Yes, he did. And honestly, Gannon's body either could have been in the Tiguan at that hotel, or she had already taken him up to Douglas County.
Both are really good options.
Yeah.
And there's only one person who really knows where he was.
Yeah.
So, on Wednesday, the 29th, Harley was scheduled to work at 8:30 that morning. And since the hotel they had parked the Tiguan at was right across the street from Harley's work, which was Massage Envy, Letitia just went with Harley to work. Now, on the way, Letitia had Harley stop off at the airport to drop off the keys to the rental car. Now, Harley doesn't know if she dropped them off in the car, if she went inside. She just doesn't remember. Throughout the whole drive, Letitia was paranoid about the police following them. Harley ended up having to leave work early that day to pick Letitia up from the Taco Bell near the hospital. She made Harley drive her back to the police parking garage to see if the Tiguan was still there. It was actually being combed through by police when they drove by. So on Thursday, Letitia's family arrived into Colorado and met them at the shopping center after Harley's phone and car got taken. Then they went to a hotel, they booked 2 rooms, and made a plan to go get Letitia and Harley's things from the house the following day. On Friday, Letitia's Aunt Brenda rented a cargo van to move stuff out of the house, and the whole family tried to talk Letitia out of doing that interview with KKTV that day. They failed. They then went back to the hotel where Letitia said she needed to go get dog food and took that white Nissan Altima that Aunt Brenda rented. And Harley said she was gone for hours. A very long time. And in this time, she had no contact with her mom. And that was odd because Harley was always in contact with her mom her whole life. She said that there was never a time that she didn't know where her mom was in her life until now.
Yeah. What's really funny is the hotel they were staying at was literally down the road from that Petco that she went to with Gannon.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's a fun fact.
That is a fun fact. So, fun. On Saturday, when Letitia went to leave town with that cargo van, Aunt Brenda said, nay, nay, you can't take that for insurance purposes. So Letitia ended up renting a new van. And when Harley went to get into that van, Letitia had it already packed up and ready to go, loaded everything. She also had all of everything Harley would need in the front seat. So that's fun.
It's not weird at all.
It's not. It's not weird. Uh, let's, I guess, continue on with the weird van things that happened because there was a lot that happened along this trip. Letitia would keep the AC blasting constantly. Like if Harley went to turn it off, because she was cold, obviously, Letitia would like yell at her and wouldn't let her. Harley was never allowed to go in the back of the van, and Letitia would be the only one to go back there to get them anything they needed, clothes, everything. Only with Letitia would go back there. Letitia also, because they had their dogs with them, would constantly keep them medicated with CBD gummies.
Because none of that is suspicious
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, not an ounce of that is suspicious.
No, of course not.
And luckily for Letitia, these are little French bulldogs.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
they're
they were-
puppies.
Mhm.
They only got them in like December, like
think
November,
so.
December. So like we're not even 6-month-old puppies. Could you imagine a normal dog? Not that little dogs aren't normal dogs, but
A grown dog?
a grown dog with their sense of smell, how much they would be freaking out.
I can't
Obviously, these
imagine.
ones were freaking out to an extent.
Yeah. That's a long drive.
It's a lot of CBD gummies.
Yeah, it is, for sure. When Harley asked where they were going, the destination like kept changing. So they went to Texas, Florida, Myrtle Beach. It just kept changing. Every time that they would go to check into a hotel, Letitia would make them walk in completely separately. So Harley would go by the elevators with the dogs, and Letitia would be the one to go up to the counter. And they never really brought bags in either. So they obviously are on a road trip, but they never went to any sit down restaurants. They only did fast food, so they were never out of the van. And anytime they would go to fast food, Harley is the one that would have to go in and order and get the food. She was never allowed to be left alone with the van. Harley does claim that like the thought of Gannon being in the van never occurred to her because she didn't think her mom could do something like this at that time, of course. So Letitia and Harley decide in Texas that they're going to go live in Dallas or Houston, and they stopped in Amarillo for the night. On Sunday, they decided to take a drive like 4.5 hours to Decatur, Texas, and stay the night. Harley doesn't remember what they did that day. This is just the day they decided they were going to go to Pensacola instead.
The following day, which would be Monday, February 3rd, they wake up in Decatur, Texas, and drive to Pensacola. They checked into their hotel after midnight, which now takes us to the morning of February 4th. Very early hours. Right after midnight, Harley says that they get in there, they have a room with a single queen size bed, They shared the bed. Harley also states she's a very, very heavy sleeper, so she doesn't know if her mom left the hotel room that night,
Must be nice, man.
right? So we do know that in the early morning hours of February 4th, Letitia did dispose of Gannon's body over that bridge. Harley was asked if her mom was physically capable of lifting that suitcase up and over the railing on the bridge, and Harley said, yeah, her mom was physically capable of doing that. When Harley woke up that morning, Letitia was back in the room, and she said they needed to leave, and they went to grab breakfast at McDonald's. Harley went inside like she did every other time. They had stopped for food. But she said her mom seemed to be down and kind of sad today. When asked why, she just said it was all the stuff going on with Gannon. Now, like,
Do you think she felt remorseful?
I'm wondering if this is her little bit of remorse, or maybe it's her starting to feel sad.
Do you think, hear me out here, she had so much adrenaline leading up to that moment that
Once she thought that she had disposed of him into a river that
yeah,
led.
maybe her body finally just hit that exhaustion that usually happens after like such deep adrenaline like that.
I could see, honestly, yes, that being what happened.
And maybe that was her like excuse to Harley. It was,
Yes.
I just, poor Gannon.
Yeah. I could definitely seeing that being what she was feeling.
Yeah.
So Letitia rented a hotel in Orlando. They left Pensacola, went to Orlando, and they were supposed to have this hotel for 5 days. Harley said they were going to start looking for apartments. They were going to live in Orlando. This was it. Well, no, not really, because after a few days, Letitia goes, the police know I'm here. They followed me. They know we're here. We have to leave. And we're running out of money. We can't afford to do this anymore. So they hop back in that van and they drive up to Myrtle Beach, where they have all their family. So Letitia drops the van off at one friend's house and goes stays at another friend's house because she just doesn't want the attention drawn to where they are. But why? If you didn't do anything, why are you hiding the van?
Yeah. That paranoia kicked in. I mean, it was already kicked in, but it was like more so now that.
So a few weeks after they get into Myrtle Beach,
Mm-hmm.
Letitia's taking Harley to the Air Force recruitment office. And the FBI already knew this.
Mm-hmm.
They were there and waiting. And that's where they jumped in, arrested Letitia, and that's the last time that Harley ever saw her mom. Harley believed her mom's innocence up until the day Letitia entered that insanity plea. She stated that as soon as her mom claimed that she was insane, she knew she did it because she'd been with her mom every day of her life and knew her mom was mentally sound and that she was not like this.
Yep.
Um I when we first listened to this trial, Sam and I stood on very opposite sides of the fence with Harley.
Oh, yeah.
Sam heard Harley's testimony, and you thought,
there's no way someone could be that naive and that dumb to not notice something. Like, fully believe that she had to have known something. She had to suspect something. There's no way you couldn't. There was so many red flags, so many signs. There's no way. There's no way.
Now, when I thought the entire time leading up to trial, Harley had to have had something to do with it. I felt it.
Yes.
And then I watched Harley's testimony and I said, she didn't do anything. She knew nothing. She was a teenager and she listened to her mom. And then I re-listened to Harley's testimony last night and into this morning, writing the end of her testimony in this episode. Oh, I'm dumb. There's no way she was that dumb. There's no way she was that naive. Somebody who was going to the Air Force Academy, who graduated high school in 3 years, who listened to her mom say all those things to Al as they drove across the country.
He heard every phone call. Every phone call.
Now, sitting on that same fence, that her brother sat on, that
Mhm.
Dakota sat on. Could you accuse your mom of this? And if you started to think your mom was accused of this after Tisha's little backhand, would you say anything? Would you? I would be scared.
Yeah.
I would be scared to be next.
Mhm.
But let me add another layer onto this.
Yep.
As I was re-listening to Harley's testimony this morning, and as we listened to it, we were trying to figure out how Harley got the position she got in this.
Mhm.
And I caught something. It was that the prosecutors said when they brought Harley in for questioning, her official questioning with them was 2 years later,
Mhm.
was her first official statement, because her family had lawyered her up and the lawyers wouldn't let her talk about Gannon immediately.
Mhm.
So 2 years later, she went in and made this statement with them. And when she came in, they said that there was potential to charge her with.
Accomplice.
Thank you. I completely lost that word.
You're okay.
Accomplice to first-degree murder.
Mhm.
What she said to them would not be held against her, but what she said to them would determine whether or not she would be charged.
Yep.
And I don't know what to do with that. Harley's response in court was, when they asked, "And what did you do?" She said, "I went in and told the truth." They asked her why, and she said, "Because it's the right thing to do." So obviously, the prosecution believed her enough to not charge her, or the things that she gave them was enough to fully nail Letitia,
So damning.
and they didn't need her. And what we both personally think is that Al expressed to keep her out of this.
Yeah.
Which is how I can see the only way Harley being left out is if Al expressed he did not want charges. Now, the state may go above anybody who doesn't want to press charges,
Mhm.
but
Yeah. And something you did fail to mention as well is like during her testimony, every time she would talk about where they were going and what they were doing, it was never she made the like Letitia, my mom made the decision. It was always we decided. We did this. We did
yeah,
that. It was never she did this. She did that.
the only time it was she was when Letitia was on her own. But if they
Yeah.
were together, we decided to go to Texas.
Yeah.
We decided to go to Pensacola. So if you want, listen to Harley's whole testimony.
Mhm. It's long. It
It's
is a very long.
It's long, but it has a lot of information, and it's hard to decide. Obviously, the court has made its decision. She wasn't a part of it.
Even the judge specifically said like she was a victim in this as well.
Yes.
I just have a very strong opinion about this. I'm just a strong opinionated person, and that's just there's hills I die on, and that's that. But regardless, I feel like she went through this traumatic experience as well, and whether she knew something or not, like I hope she's doing okay.
I do too.
Like she doesn't have anyone anymore.
No, he doesn't. And I just wish the best for her.
Yeah.
And, if she had something to do with it, she got to fight their own demons on her own.
Mhm.
But I don't think she had any nefarious
No.
doings in it. She just might have been a little bit more willingly naive to what was happening around her afterwards.
Correct. I agree. I just hope she's doing okay, and I hope that her and Al still talk because I think he was probably a very good influence in her life.
And he had expressed at the end of trial that he hasn't talked to her since, and that
Mhm.
he is still there for her. So I hope that she went back to Al and made that relationship again.
Even in his impact statement, he said something, which we'll get to later. But I hope she's okay. I hope
Me
she's
too.
doing well. So,
Okay, that's Harley's testimony.
yes. And speaking of the calls again, because
Yes.
Harley had to listen to all of them, as well as Al, like while Al was having to talk to Letitia as well. Speaking of all those calls again, while Letitia was on the phone, she brought up so much information, like all of the blood in Gannon's room. Al was being fed info, like we said before, from the police to help push push the conversation a little bit further. We ended up learning a lot about the evidence they found. So they found a large red stain on his mattress, which tested positive for blood. They removed the carpet from under his bed and found a paper plate sized stain that was also blood. They found multiple traces of blood on his walls and outlet covers and the back of his bedroom door and doorknob and light switch. Like, there was blood actually all over this room, and she tried to do her best to clean it up, but
For
she's,
somebody who is a super OCD self-proclaimed cleaner,
yeah.
she did a really bad job cleaning up this crime scene.
Oh my goodness.
And we're so happy she did.
Oh, absolutely. So, also in the first house investigation video, they said the room smelled like bleach hardcore. So,
Especially when they looked under the bed for Gannon.
yep.
It was strong.
Yeah. They also found blood in the garage and on the bumper of the Tiguan, as well as the laundry room. Included in the laundry room, there was some sheets and clothes in the dryer, but they didn't say that there was anything on them. It may have just been in the dryer. But there was also a pair of women's Nike shoes that had a red substance on the bottom of it, and they took it and tested it, and it was confirmed to be Gannon's blood. They also found cleaning supplies in the dishwasher that tested positive for blood.
Like scrub brushes and
Yeah.
stuff. Like she put those in the dishwasher to clean them and then forgot she put them in there and acted like it was a totally normal thing to do.
Yeah. For me personally, I think that's kind of gross because, like,
Ew.
you eat off plates that go in there and drink like, that's just
Ugh,
gross to me.
yeah.
Yeah. So they also brought out the suitcase that Gannon was found in, and they wanted to show it to the jury. The prosecution actually, before they brought it out, they were like, we're going to make this so fast and get it back into a different room because the smell was so horrid. Oh, yeah. They made sure to walk that suitcase from the back of the courtroom all the way up the aisle and in front of every single juror. Very slowly, might I add. And some people in the courtroom said that they were able to smell it. And it was in a sealed bag, but they were able to smell it, and there was maggots still inside of it. Hopefully they were dead though, since they keep
Had it,
that
like, frozen.
yeah, they keep it in a freezer, so hopefully they were dead
Hopefully, yeah.
maggots, but the fact that it was still in there and the smell was that rancid, that's rough. But there was definitely it was one of the most impactful and damning pieces of evidence
It really
and
was.
moments for that jury, for sure.
So this brings us to the defense's only witness that they call, Dr. Dorothy Lewis.
Mm.
Yeah, my exact sentiments. This woman, okay, while she is a pioneer in DID
Yeah.
and institutes for it and cases for it over years,
Oh yeah. Big cases.
massive cases.
Yeah.
She has a list of credentials that are very impressive,
Oh yeah.
but she is no longer practicing.
Ugh,
So she's basically hired for cases
Mhm.
to testify in as an expert witness, but she no longer practices and hasn't because she's really, really old.
She is a pain. Pain in my asshole for sure. Because I don't know what was worse, honestly, listening to her or listening to all those calls from Letitia.
It's a toss up.
It is. It was so rough. Like, she caused some of the delays in the trial because of the whole food poisoning. She's also in a wheelchair, and she has to have her son go everywhere with her as her, like,
Aid,
yeah.
which is fine.
Yeah.
Except for she really used that to, oh, I can't reach the mic. I can't sit in here. We can't do this. And then on
Mhm.
top of that, we find out that her son was in the interviews with Letitia
Yeah.
when he wasn't supposed to be.
And the only way we knew that happened is because, like, even the prosecution didn't even know. They had the videos playing, and then he just, like, gets up, and we're like, What? Why is he here?
Yes, so they brought in Dr. Lewis to basically defend Letitia's insanity defense of DID.
Yeah.
And in these videos that they showed, we got to see and hear about Letitia's different personalities.
Yep.
So first we got Maria, the Russian spy,
who talked with a Russian accent and a
And his-
Spanish accent.
yes, and would come out to protect.
Yes. Maria. Listening to her try to do those accents in the videos though were hilarious.
It was great. And then like her body movements where she would like shake her head and like pop up and all of a sudden be like, yes. And then we had Jasper.
She essentially was naming all of her personalities after Twilight characters.
Yes, and also slightly following like a plot of Twilight loosely as well.
Yeah, she tried.
The purpose of Dorothy Lewis was to give Letitia her evaluation
Mhm.
and to prove her DID. And this piece of paper that the evaluation was done on and was supposedly handed over, but nobody had this piece of paper. It didn't exist. The judge was asking for it. The defense was asking, or prosecution was asking for it. Everybody. And wouldn't you know, it suddenly appeared in her purse
She
on the
was like,
stand.
this one?
Yes. And so after the judge is just completely done with everything,
Yeah.
he's trying to call them up to the bench.
Mhm.
There's like some scuffling, all the mics are still on, and you just hear her go, "But I thought we were going to do this in appeals."
Yep.
And we knew it. We knew that when we heard opening statements and thought they were going after a mistrial. We're like, seriously, this was your guys' plan all along.
Yeah. She just like confirmed what we already knew.
She did. And she would be asked a question and she would go into a long story
Yes.
about another case or a time when she was opening up an institution or a practice and would never actually answer the question to the point where the judge was like, "Would you just answer the question in
Yes,
under 45 minutes?"
he was so mad at her. He was like, just answer yes or no. That's it. That's a question. Just answer yes or no."
And it was days of this.
Yes, it was. It was
And
rough.
yeah, when she was done, we were so happy. And that was the defense's only witness.
Yeah,
And it was absolute garbage.
it was. I feel like it was kind of like
We have to do
when it
something.
against her. Like they definitely were hoping for a mistrial to be like, oh, maybe we can get more, but they didn't ever.
Yeah. Ever. So all that was left was the closing statements. And in closing, prosecution went ahead and laid out what they thought was motive and what happened to Gannon that Monday afternoon. So they basically laid out that the months leading up to Gannon's disappearance, Letitia was growing very jealous of Landon and the relationship that Landon and or not Landon that Gannon and Lena had with her and how much they talked to their mom and wanted their mom and loved their mom even though Letitia was doing everything for these kids. In her mind, they should be wanting her.
Yeah.
Not their mom because she does everything and Landon does nothing. And so something unfolded that weekend that was her last straw and Gannon got hurt on Saturday night and Sunday or
Yeah.
Gannon got hurt with the candle on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday they went for the hike and she drugged him that evening with the hydrocortisone and hydrocodone, thank you. And then when he woke up that morning, she kept him home from school, kept him drugged in the truck, hoping that he would succumb. When he didn't, they got home. He ran inside. She ran after him and proceeded to attack him. And you know what happened from there.
Yeah.
And based on all the evidence and what we found in her phone and all the GPS, it's really plausible. Just absolutely sad. It could have been 1000% avoided.
Yeah. I remember like halfway through the trial, you messaged me and you were like, I think I know exactly what happened. And essentially laid out everything that you just did and was like, this is it. She is the one that she wanted him to turn to and essentially be the provider with, how do I explain this? Like, she was the one taking care of him. She is the one that has been there with Al being gone, Landon being across the country, and she's like, why doesn't he love me? Is
He
essentially
just
what I was getting from it.
Yeah, he wasn't reciprocating her love
Mm-hmm.
in the way that she wanted to. She wasn't doing all these things because she wanted to. She was doing them all for the recognition.
Yeah.
And she was not getting that recognition in the way she thought she deserved it. And for some reason, Gannon is where that anger was taken out of.
Yeah.
Instead of just divorcing Al and walking away from everything, she decided that she wanted to hurt Landon
Mm-hmm.
in the only way she thought she could.
Yeah. She had it out for Landon. And Al even said, one, Gannon was a mama's boy through and through.
Oh, yes, it comes up so much in
Yes.
the family statements.
Yeah. And Al even said that Letitia just didn't like Gannon ever. She was always closer to Harley or Lena and was just kind of like, Gannon. It's heartbreaking.
It is. It's absolutely heartbreaking that it happened.
Yeah, for sure. I know in my mind, I I think she allegedly, this is just my opinion, I think she purposely burned him on Saturday night as the last straw. Like burning him with the wax or like with the flame while if he was napping downstairs, because maybe he did have stomach problems, so maybe he was napping trying to feel better, and she was like, oh, I wonder if I can hurt him to see if he will come to me. His dad's not here, his mom's not here, I'm the one that is here for him. If I hurt him, will he latch to me for help? And when he didn't, she snapped.
Yeah, and I also think that with that theory that you have, that she may have, and this is just my opinion, might have burned him more than she anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
And when she realized how bad those burns were on Monday, how bad they still were, that if she took him to the hospital, it was going to be child abuse charges
Yeah.
and it was going to turn into this whole thing. So instead of that, I think she spent the day working up a plan of how Gannon could go missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wouldn't be on her. And so, unfortunately, I just think it's a series of events that spiraled into something.
Do you think that maybe their hike in Garden of the Gods was a ploy for him to possibly get hurt there too?
It could have been. We don't really know exactly what her thought was for all this. We may be giving her too much credit and having too much planning in all of this,
Mm-hmm.
and things just may have happened, and she's just incredibly stupid. And instead of doing the right thing, just kept making all the wrong choices
Yeah.
intentionally, but making the wrong choices.
Yeah. I know she has admitted to killing him. The one thing we didn't mention was that during one of the interviews with her and Dr. Lewis, she straight up tells them the sound of his last breath that he took and
Yes,
describes it in detail.
she does. And at that point in these interviews, she had to have known that this was going to be trial.
Mm-hmm.
She was done. And I feel like this was a last effort of hers to really torture Alan Landon
Yeah.
because there's no other reason for her doing that while she was still pleading not like guilty by reason of insanity.
Yeah.
Like,
She knew there was too much evidence against her and she was trying to con her way out of something else again.
now, I will say that it was up until the very end that there was potential for her to take the stand.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
We were
we
praying for
we were
it.
hoping so much that she was going to go against everything because it's her choice.
Yeah.
No one can tell her she can't do it. Her lawyers can highly advise her not to do it, but they are allowed to take the stand if they want to, and we wanted her to so bad because the woman doesn't shut up.
No.
And this would have been the only time I really wanted to listen to everything she had to say.
Yeah.
But she unfortunately decided not to take the stand.
If she did, so Trial lasted, what was it? 15
15 days, but
15
we had
days.
like Thursdays off, and
There
then
was
some
no
snow days
days.
for like weather and stuff because the power went out
Yeah. And then the delay with Dr. Lewis. But
by a
like
day
if
or two.
she
Yeah.
if she would have taken the stand, it would have gone from 15 days to like
20, 25 days. Easy.
easy because she doesn't shut up. But I think honestly for her not taking the stand was probably the smartest thing she could have done. She would have been ripped apart.
Oh, but it would have been so much fun to
It would have
watch.
been amazing. Oh, it's okay. With that though, she was in trial for 15 days. The jury deliberated for 8 hours in total, and they started on Friday.
May 5th?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Friday, May
Yes.
5th.
Yes. Friday, May 5th, they started, and it was in the afternoon, and they deliberated for the rest of the day, and then they just went home. And we were all weekend long. I was just like, I was just
Is it Monday
waiting.
yet?
I know, I was waiting. And then Monday, I was, I'm not kidding, I was pacing my office, like up and down the hallways. And
So I was at work and I was doing a pedicure,
yeah,
and I had my AirPod in one ear, and the entire salon was just waiting, and we had the music off, and I was just like live giving things as the judge announced them. I was just yelling them in the salon.
ugh, that's fantastic.
It was. Everyone was so invested. Like that whole few weeks,
Mm-hmm.
everybody was like, "We're not watching trial because we just come in here and ask you, and you give us the entire like overview
Yeah,
of what's gone on so far, and we're good to go."
yeah. I was pacing everywhere. And then finally they came out with the verdict, and she was guilty on all counts. Thank God.
Yes, I mean, I really didn't have a doubt that
Yeah.
she was going to get convicted, but it just felt really good knowing that all of the charges stuck.
Yes. So she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole and some extra years on top of that for abuse of the corpse and child endangerment and abuse and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So,
And also with that, we got Gannon's Law.
yes.
So that classifies any child under the age of 12 years old is now entered as a missing and endangered child instead of a runaway.
Hmm.
And that would have made such a big difference in the beginning days for Gannon because there wouldn't have been waiting for him to show back up or surveillance and all that. He would have instantly gone into it as missing.
Yeah. They would have done heavier searches, I feel, of the house and Letitia and everything like surrounding it.
Yeah.
So, thankfully, we got impact statements at the end of trial. And oh boy, were they impactful. So we had a few of them, but the biggest ones were Landon and Al.
Yes.
Landon came out swinging at her verbally.
I wish it would have been physically,
I know,
but
we all,
she decided to beat her with her words and not her fists.
yes,
We're proud of her.
yes, it's,
We were crying the whole time.
oh, absolutely.
So we do want to play you clips of Landon's impact
Yeah.
statement, but we'll have the full video link below.
Hmm. We also are going to play some clips from Al's impact statement, which that one got me too. So sweet, sweet Al. Oh, I he went through so much with Letitia and losing a son. He had his new wife there, which was super
It was
love
sweet,
love
very
that for
supportive.
her.
She
Yeah,
is also has lost her son
yeah,
as well, so they kind of bond over that.
they did. I'm pretty sure they met each other at
A grief support group, right?
yeah, absolutely. And they now have a new son together, and I hope he is thriving at life, which I'm sure he is.
Oh yes.
Hmm. But Al's impact statement, he specifically asked no restitution just because he didn't want to be attached to Letitia anymore for the rest of his life. And
Something like what, like $1.50 every month or something, and he didn't even want to see that in the bank account.
yeah, because he's done with her. He wanted to
Yeah.
be done. And one of the clips we're going to play for you is he had a note from Lena, and she wrote it in yellow crayon.
So it's really hard for him to read,
Yeah.
but it's just the sweetest thing ever that Lena even came up with words
Mhm.
to do this. And it's awful that she even had to do this.
She didn't have to. She
No, I
could
just mean
have.
that it's awful that this
Oh,
happened to her, so he had
absolutely.
to do this.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. But so he reads a statement from her, and she directs her words to Letitia, and it's just, oh, sweet girl.
It's amazing how or what kids can pick up on and say even from a young age when they know what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we are going to play for you just a few clips of Judge Warner's speech that he gave to Letitia at the end.
It was
And
magical.
once again, Judge Warner, gift basket,
Or dinner.
anytime, anytime.
We're here.
We highly suggest you guys go watch the entire Judge Warner video.
Mhm.
We're gonna have it linked. It's like 20 minutes, but we're gonna play you our favorite parts of it because he did such a wonderful job with this trial.
Yes, he did. Oh my goodness, he's an amazing judge, for sure.
I never really understood what people meant when they would say that while watching trials and other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's an incredible judge. I understood that
Absolutely.
watching this trial.
Absolutely. He was just so respectful to everyone, including the jurors, and he fucking laid into her
He really
in
did.
the
He
most
did not let.
professional manner
Yeah, he
possible.
was not letting Letitia have any shenanigans.
Absolutely. So please enjoy those clips, and we'll be right back.
I, in my heart, can never understand her hatred and insecurities. When it came to me, I did love her. Mother to mother, I trusted her with my children while trying to survive a complicated life with my third child. And she used every opportunity to write a narrative of my life to try to take pieces of my life. When she already took some of it, that still wasn't enough. She searched so hard for love when all along she had it, but she took it for granted. I didn't hold anger against you then. I still kept my heart open to her. You had so much love from Lena and Gannon, from Harley, her own daughter, that you willingly subjected to the chance of serving time for her crimes. Such an indicator of her inability to love anyone herself. You had support, appreciation for me, even when we couldn't see eye to eye, because I valued her for helping me with our children when I physically couldn't. Even when I was fighting for my kids, as you wrote, a false smear campaign against me and my children, and also Al. For me, I still appreciated that they were loved by you. So I thought. She had everyone fooled. She projected abuse and addiction claims against all of us, not just me, when all along she was the one harming innocent children. Anything to take the light off. Manipulating us, breaking my kids, and murdering my son. I can't say that she ruined my life, because that would be some form of sick victory for her. Because even through this process, it's been a game to her. The people who listened doesn't know her style or her sly jabs. She's even made at Albert and I. They do not know the significance of certain things she says or does. But we do. Leave us with that, knowing it would torture us. But you underestimated me. I am Landon, Gannon's mom, and that will never change. Through my hurt, anger, and pain, I will never be the monster that she is.
Now for Lena. The video you saw as submitted in evidence, her bebopping down the street, is actually an excellent depiction of Lena and her happiness and her joy in life. She is very loving, trusting, and at times way too social. Normally, you might be concerned by your little girl talking to the utility guy working in the front yard, but in this case, it was the inside of her own home that was of grave concern. Nonetheless, her loss, Lena's loss, is like none I can even imagine. She lost her big brother, her only brother at the time. I still do not know if she has fully processed or fully understands the gravity of the situation, but regardless has pressed forward and is thriving as best as she can. I am so proud of her. And these are her words. Once again, they're in yellow, so I'll do the best I can. And this is what I asked her if she wanted to say anything to Tisha, and this is what she said in her sweetest mind that she has. That you do not do that to people, especially your stepkids. And that it is never all right to do these things. How sweeter of a response can you get? Your Honor, if I have any influence on the final sentence for Tisha, first I ask to be stripped of my last name immediately. It's nauseating and infuriating to hear her called Miss Stauch this past 3 years. Secondly, I ask that for every mile she drove Gannon across the country, she spend 1 day in solitary confinement. I think that take us in between 3 and 4 years. After that journey is complete, I recommend her sentence be equal to every year she stripped off of Gannon's life, which for the average male in America right now is 77. So that would give her 66 more years, in addition to the 11 he lived. Lastly, for every year of Harley's life that she abusively manipulated that child, she should have an additional year of prison. That adds 21 years to the total. I think without parole, that should suffice. I pray also that Tisha lives the fullest and happiest life that any inmate possibly can live. I also pray that every night before she falls asleep, her last breath before she drifts off sounds just like the breath that she describes Gannon breathing as life left his body. And that all through her sleep, she dreams of all the fun they had at Disney and other places we went throughout our time together. And that every morning as she is about to wake, the end of her dream, the last words Gannon spoke or screamed or cried, "Tisha, stop! You're hurting me. Why, Tisha? Daddy, help me. I want my mommy. Why couldn't you let her just be a mama's boy? That's all he wanted to be. He just loved his mama. I wish she would tell me what those words were so I would know." And then as she speaks those words, the sound of a gunshot goes off and she wakes. Every day and night I pray she relives just those moments and then wakes up to a nice, warm, and kosher breakfast.
Ms. Stauch, you betrayed the person you loved enough to marry. You told your husband lies and took away someone he loved. You took away every day that Mr. Stauch or Ms. Bullard could have had with their son. When you take a life, regardless of how you do that, you forever alter the future. Neither Mr. Stauch nor Ms. Bullard will ever see their son graduate from high school, go through the joy and the pain of that first love, or get married. They will never know what kind of impact their son may have had on the world if only he had lived to become an adult. And had Gannon's body not been found, they never would have known what happened to Gannon. They would always have had a lingering doubt about what happened to Gannon. And I cannot imagine the pain and sense of loss associated with that. You betrayed your daughter, Harley Hunt. I cannot imagine the emotional impact that you have had on her due to your selfish and calculated actions. This is a young woman that trusted you to put her interests above yours. This is a young woman who believed in you and believed you were innocent of this crime right up until the time that you pled not guilty by reason of insanity. And she still loves you. That's natural for a child, and it doesn't matter how much older they get. You were supposed to protect her. I cannot imagine the guilt she feels or the therapy that she will need to address your portrayal. There is no evidence that she had anything to do with the murder or your cover-up of it, but some people still think that she is somehow involved. She wasn't. The incredible strength of will and courage that it took for her to come in and testify is amazing to me. But she did it because, as she said, it was the right thing to do. And while thankfully she didn't testify, let's not forget about Lena. You betrayed her too. You took her brother from her and forever altered her family dynamics. She will always wonder who she can trust and will always feel that loss. She was there the day you killed Gannon. His body was still in the house when she got back from school. At some point, you even claimed this 8-year-old girl helped you move her brother's body from the basement to the back of your car. That's just simply not true. As she gets older, Lena is going to want to know more, and she's going to want to know if there was something that she could have done to prevent this. I hope she comes to realize that she has no fault in all of this. You betrayed your stepson, and you took his life. You took away everything he was and everything he could ever become. I can't imagine the terror and confusion that he must have felt in the last moments of his life when he knew his life was being taken by someone he trusted to protect it. Dissociative identity disorder. I have seen something resembling that, and I have seen defendants with schizophrenic disorders. I can understand those. What I have seen is that the mental condition causes the person to act a certain way, and when they realize what they did, they are astonished by what happened, or they have no memory of what happened. Your claim is that it was another personality that murdered Gannon, but there is no time during the minutes, hours, and days following the murder where Letitia came out and wondered, gee, why am I carrying a body around in my luggage? That just isn't credible. You knew what you were doing. You made a number of clear and conscious decisions to cover or disguise what you had done. It is not hard to imagine Gannon saying something, "You're not my mom. I want my mom. I want my dad." And that would be enough to make you really angry. But anger is not an excuse. A defendant is responsible for the choices they made and the actions they undertook, even though those choices arose out of or were motivated by anger. It's clear that you hated and were jealous of Landon Bullard. You saw yourself as a better mother than she was. It's clear from the evidence that you had some resentment from being left with Mr. Stauch's children. It's clear you had some resentment toward Mr. Stauch because he traveled as part of his job. I can, however, say without hesitation that the facts in this case are the most horrific I have ever seen. Your conduct in this case deserves the maximum punishment that I can impose under Colorado law. As such, with respect to the charge of first-degree murder after deliberation, I remand you to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life with no possibility of parole. With respect to the charge of murder in the first degree of a child under 12 by a person in a position of trust, I remand you to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life with no possibility of parole. Those two sentences will merge. If you have questions about that, you can ask your attorneys. With With respect to the charge of tampering with a deceased human body, I'm also going to sentence you to 12 years, followed by a 3-year period of parole. That sentence is to be consecutive to the life sentences that I've already imposed. With respect to tampering with physical evidence, I'm going to impose an 18-month sentence. That sentence is also consecutive to the to the sentences for the murder charges that I have imposed.
We hope that you guys enjoyed those impact statements as much as we did. They were truly some of the best that I have ever heard. And we just really hope that Gannon's entire family is more at peace a year out than they were last year, knowing that there is justice for Gannon, with Letitia serving a lifelong sentence. She is never getting out. She can never hurt anybody again. So it's a really hard one, but at least the person responsible for it is in the right place now.
Absolutely. I also feel that there's a lot of people still supporting Alan Landon constantly and doing everything to keep Gannon's memory alive. He was so loved and just an amazing kid, and I just hate that he's never gonna, experience life. But he made such an impact on so many people in the short life that he did have.
He really did.
Yeah. And even though it's such an awful situation, I'm so happy I can say that we got justice for Gannon Stauch.
I am too. So, if you guys enjoyed our episode today, go ahead and hit that subscribe and follow button so that you can be updated on all of our new episodes.
Yep.
Because next week we might have a little something special coming. So make sure you're subscribed and followed so you can get all the notifications. And we'll see you next Tuesday for an all new episode.
Yep. Love you guys. Okay, bye.